Just keep going. Just keep going. There's a lot of stress in your life when you're investing lots of money and you're raising money from investors. And my wife has found me at my desk, like, just like, I don't know if I can do this, like moments of doubt. And you're like, can I do this? I'm like, here's my guarantee. If you don't try, you definitely can't do this.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Franchise. As always, I am your host, Paul Ehlinger, here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we're joined with a friend of mine here down in Nashville, Jimmy Speyer. Jimmy, thank you for being on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Paul. Pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time. And, for those who may not know you, who the heck are you? Where have you come from? What are you doing today?
Well, my name is Jimmy. I am the founder and CEO of GlassHouse. We are a digital door knocking platform for home services, franchises, and independents, but only people who service people's homes, which is a sneaky, huge part of the economy. If you don't pay attention to it, if you drive down the road and count like I do, it's about 1 in 10 vehicles will actually be logoed up these days.
Yeah.
So we work with people who work on your property.
I love that. And what's the background? So you obviously did not start in kind of this space. How'd you get here?
Is it that obvious just by the look of me? Cool. Yes, I did not start in this space. I've spent 15 years in software. Before that, where I started my career was in hospitality and restaurants. It's not what I went to college for, but I went to college for marketing and then was in restaurants. And then I got into technology in a super roundabout way about 15 years ago, and it was restaurant technology. So it was kind of like an easy hop, and actually that is something that's what I would encourage people to do if they are interested in transitioning to a technology job, is try to go to the technology that services your current domain, because you'll just show up with experience, which is kind of like an easy transfer there, and then you can branch out. And so I got into that, and I spent 15 years building a career in mostly sales and marketing and sales across 3 different businesses and hyperscaling a couple of those. And 3 years ago, I decided to just like put up a shingle and go out on my own and see if I could make it happen from day zero, as you did as well, Paul. And I bought a home service franchise, and I founded a service business for service businesses. It's not more technology service, and went out there and said, how do we help home service businesses win more revenue? Because that was what I'd spent my whole career helping other businesses do, is make money. Said, how can we do that here? So that's how I got here.
I love it. And did you? So you bought? It's a Pink's location, right? Pink's Windows.
Yes, my wife and I bought a Pink's window washing franchise.
Did you do that at the same time as launching GlassHouse? Did one lead to the other? Because I know they're like somewhat similarly on the timeline.
They GlassHouse led to that. So before we had a product, I had this company, and then we were looking at what can we do, and what can we build, and how can we help. And then what we realized, I would say astutely, or we just were super naive before we figured it out, was we don't know anything about this. And so we're like, we have to go buy a home service business and figure out what it is we're actually talking about. And you could talk to 100, and I talked to hundreds of people before I started doing things, but it's just not the same as that lived experience. So my wife was nice enough to volunteer to run the business, and she came out of retirement. She's a teacher. I was taking care of our kiddos and helped. We launched the product and that company on the same day, but legally, the GlassHouse business existed already, but the product didn't. So the day the product went to market was the day we launched our franchise.
Interesting. So you guys were dog fooding your own product just right from the get-go.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we're like, well, if this is going to help us, then I guess it'll help other people. And it was a total bet because it was a brand new thing. So brand new franchise, brand new product. Let's see if they work together.
Just throw all the variables out at once, right?
Totally. Let's make it impossible to measure, but just not how I like to roll. But the idea was to bet big. And that is actually something that I would say is super kind of important to me, is to have a relatively high risk tolerance. And then be willing to be wrong. Like when we started GlassHouse, actually we're looking for different problems to solve. We picked a couple along the way. They weren't the right problems to solve. We built some products, we threw them away. So if you're willing to be wrong along the way, that's okay. Then you can make a lot of bets and hopefully you'll get one right.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm curious for you, because you obviously had like a decent sized career before you actually took kind of the leap there and started GlassHouse, right? What was that for you? Like what turned over in your career where it's like, hey, now is the time that I should be running something, I should be starting something? Because it's a very different lifestyle, right?
It is. I reached out to, I always kind of thought I wanted to. I'd been part of 4 tech companies, and I've been part of 3 like where I was in leadership and had an exit along the way. I'd seen the way that it could help build wealth and generational wealth even for some of the founders of those companies. I was curious to see what that would feel like or look like. And I also always found that as I would go through these companies, I would invariably kind of like want to go zig, and like the founders would want to zag or something, but it wasn't really up to me at the end of the day. It was their company. And then one thing that had happened along the way is I had kids.
Sure.
So I have a 12 and a 10-year-old, two little boys now. And along the way, I had these kids, and I realized the experience of having like children actually made me understand the desire to actually like have your own thing, because it's like having nieces and nephews. You love them, but it's not the same as having your own kids. Having other people,
you get to hand them off at the end of the day.
Like, here you go. They're crying. It's your problem. But also, the same as with a business, is if you're the head of revenue or your CRO and do these kind of like these executive level jobs, it's great, but it's still at the end of the day not yours. And it's not just from a I want to make all the decisions perspective. It was actually from a I want to have my own. I want to experience what it's like to really go all in on something and believe in it and do that. So that actually it took years to get to the point where I felt I was capable, ready, and financially available to me. But that was the thing that actually was always in the back of my mind.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, obviously I run a company over here as well. I think I love the assumption of responsibility, because it means like it's on me if it goes up or if it goes down. And that just feels good, because I feel like you cannot learn more in any other capacity than this. You know what I mean? Like, it is such a visceral learning experience, for better or worse, on any given day. But it is the best learning experience you could possibly have.
Yeah, I tried doing consulting at one point in my career, which actually between two leadership roles, I was a consultant, which led me to the company I ended up going to next, because I consulted there. And I realized that I'm like the world's shittiest consultant, because I have a lot of opinions, but I also want to see things through to
see it all the way through.
And I always think of like, I don't hire a lot of consultants, because what I generally get from consultants is, and I've had fractional employees, to be fair. When I hire somebody to be fractional, it's because I'm embedding them in the company, just not as a full-time employee, but they are here, they come to the meetings, they get a company email. They're not a consultant. To me, consultants are the people who answer every question with, there's a lot of way to answer that question. And my answer is always like, yes, and I would like you to give us one, because that's what we're paying you for.
Commit to the one you want.
Commit to the one you think. Be wrong. And that's what I love to do, is I love to see if I'm right or if I'm wrong. And I said, I'm okay. I'm wrong plenty of times. But then you get to have the excitement of sometimes being right. And when you start the thing and you really go all in, you get to have that experience for good and for bad.
Yeah, not really what we thought we'd talk about here, but I love this conversation because I think it's so fascinating. It's such an emotional experience to start and run a company, because a part of it is like you have to unblock yourself. Like, you have to let yourself be successful. You have to take on that fear. You have to like go through it every day. And it is very different, to your point, than being a leader at another company. Like, you still have a lot of responsibility, but man, it's just a more visceral experience every day and every night.
It is. Yes, I agree.
I love that. Progressing through, I'm curious, because I think you had a long sales, background in software, and now you're kind of doing both. You're selling software and you're selling home services, at the Pinks location. How are those things similar and different? Because I think sometimes, I think sales is a very tough skill set that not a lot of people have, but then being able to do it across different industries, different kind of surface areas, a challenge. What's that been like?
Well, so my wife is the person who has run the Pinks, so she would be the best person to talk about there. But I do see across that business, and then, I'm involved, and then all the, hundreds and hundreds of franchises that we work with across the country. And what I would say is there's some specific differences is in selling software, you're generally selling some reoccurring thing. That's the way software is sold nowadays. And so you're selling something that is delivered on a very regular basis. And it's something that they're generally engaging with to solve usually a specific problem that has bubbled itself up pretty high up the list. Now, in services, it kind of depends on what you're selling, because when you're selling a service, like, are you selling a nice to have service? Are you selling a luxury service, which window washer would categorize itself as a luxury service? It doesn't sound like that, but it is, because what you're selling is time. Now, there are different types of home services where you're not just selling time. You're selling materials and expertise that they don't have, right? Like, I'm not going to rewire my electrical like,
Yeah.
like for my house, I would kill myself. Or I'm not going to, replace my toilet. I'll probably break it. And I'm not going
Yeah.
to fix my HVAC unit because I don't know how. So if you're selling an emergency service, they're probably a little more similar to software. If you're selling a kind of luxury and or kind of like non-emergency service, then really what you're selling is time, and you're also selling often the absence of something. If you sell pest control, you're selling no pests, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so thinking about really what I would say the similarity though is what is driving this buyer experience? Why are they interested in talking to you?
Yep.
And from a B2B perspective, they're also, the other thing is I sell B2B. That's what software usually is.
Yep.
You're probably talking to somebody who's spending somebody else's money. And then we talk to individual franchisees, it's their money, but it's the business's money still at the end of the day too. They're making investments in their business versus selling to a consumer. Most consumers don't operate, and when you're selling franchise services, you're selling them to a consumer. They don't operate in that same mindset of, ooh, I'm going to invest this money in my windows and I will get a return on the value from that.
Sure, yeah.
Like nobody ever made money because we sold them window washing services that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So they don't make money off of you. And so it's different. You're not trying to demonstrate an ROI. You're trying to make a emotional appeal, or you're trying to solve an immediate need because they have a specific problem. So there's similarities, but there are specific differences as well. And they tend to focus on, why is this person, if you wanted to distill it down, why is this person even wanting to talk to me?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's a great segue into GlassHouse. So you guys are digital door knocking, right? And I think what I'm curious to learn about, is I think consumers are acting different every day, and it's accelerating, right? We're seeing that where search is changing into AI search. I think consumer behavior is rapidly changing in how they purchase and find solutions online. What's your experience been? Maybe not just with GlassHouse, but what you've seen across the market as you've been building GlassHouse. What's changed over the last 5 years?
What seems there's a couple of things that have changed. One, the size of the market is not growing as fast as the entrance to the market. So there are more at home services. That's where we live. There are more home service businesses every year than there are new houses being built, right? So the competitive nature of this business is getting really, really high, right? So we're getting a lot more, supply and a lot more demand. So the desire to capture that demand has never been higher, which means we're bidding up the cost of getting that demand captured. Yeah. And what the industry didn't always suffer from that problem. The biggest problem, if you go back 10 years or so or more, was how do I staff this thing? Because there was more demand than you could meet. And so just being able to create the supply would mean you could grow. So with that change, what you're starting to see is, okay, well then how are we getting beyond just capturing inbound intent? How are we creating demand? How are we actually getting onto someone's to-do list? Especially for elective services, which is a big part of the market. They tend to have high ticket items too, right? So what we've seen kind of as a transition in that market is people starting to think about, how am I transitioning away from being solely thinking about speed to lead, which there's a lot of people in the market, they talk about that a lot. That's what I hear the most, speed to lead. There's nothing wrong with having speed to lead. But if your entire strategy is predicated on that, then you have very little competitive differentiation from anybody else who also has fast speed to lead. You're not doing anything new or novel.
No. Everybody's getting triggered at the same time, and the response is essentially the same, all that.
Yeah. And you're also just saying that we're still at the end of the day reliant on our Google and our Meta rankings and being the first one they found, because if you are just as fast as I am and I got found first, then I still beat you. And so it's a very kind of, to me, that's a transient advantage that goes away very quickly. It can be taken away from you very quickly. Yeah. Versus what we have focused on, what we saw in this market coming from, and this is maybe the benefit of coming from a different segment, right? We came, I've come, my team, most of them, from B2B SaaS sales. We say, you don't know anything about home services. Like, we're learning as fast as we can for years now. Yeah. And that's what we do all day. But we do bring some other like kind of background, which is outbound, going to homeowners, creating non-competitive, non-bidded opportunities, not waiting for someone to find you, is the antidote, in our opinion, to an over-reliance on what a tried and true methodology that, hey, it totally did work for a long time. But if you, what's that definition of insanity? Like, keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. If it's not working anymore, if you hate the cost of your leads, spending more money on them isn't going to make you like them better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think you're spot on with that because, you know, especially like I think as businesses have evolved over time, you know, even the two guys in a truck are fairly technologically sophisticated to this point. Like they have speed to lead, they've got a website up, they're running ads, you know, and
Mhm.
so it is just the market has really come together. How much have you seen, you know, when you're kind of doing this demand generation side of things? Do people understand that, right? Are they saying like, how are they changing budgets? Are they spending more or less because of it in their ads? Like, how are they changing their business when they do implement demand generation as opposed to just, you know, working on their inbound and working on ads and all that good stuff?
So I haven't seen a huge sea change yet in
Hmm.
the market in terms of, hey, let's start reallocating huge swaths of our budget.
Yeah.
It's, and we work with 350 different brands, all in the home service
Hmm.
sector. A lot of, half of them are franchises. And so what I don't see is a giant change in let's reallocate our budget. It's really more about how are we going to invest additional spend. So if we want to
Sure.
keep growing, like if you're going
Yeah.
to spend, let's say you're spending 10% of your revenue every year on customer and revenue capture, right? That's
Yeah.
not a crazy number. It's
Yep.
not crazy at all. It's pretty normal actually. So you say, well, if I want to grow from 500,000 to $1 million a year in revenue, then I'm going to go from spending $50,000 to $100,000. So I could put
Sure.
another 50 into this, Meta machine or
Yeah.
Google lottery, or how do I allocate some portion of that to other channels as I go?
Yep.
And we're really about an omni-channel approach. Our thesis isn't stop doing everything else and just do
Sure.
outbound,
Yeah.
because actually that's not how we roll as a business ourselves. We do a lot of
Yeah.
outbound. We do
Yeah.
outbound email and we do outbound calling and we do lots of things like that. But we don't not do inbound.
Right. Right.
These all work together. And you don't want to think of them as, just I can only do this or I can only do that. It's like, how do these things work together? And so what we
Yeah.
generally see is we're a growth engine for customers. When we talk to businesses, if they say we're not interested in growing, that's not like a negative thing necessarily. They might just be saying we're at the
Yeah.
reaping
They're,
what we've
they're
sowed
running the
stage.
business they want to run, right? Yeah.
We built a $10 million or $20 million business.
Yeah.
It's flowing through. We're not
Good on
interested
them.
in making additional investments. We're extracting some of that value and we're pushing it down to our bottom line or our EBIT so we can
Yeah.
exit the business to some type of entity. That's great. That's
Yep.
awesome. But we are really built for growth-minded businesses who are saying, I want
Yeah.
to invest in growing, so this is a channel that will help me do that.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting to me about it is it seems like you're also just like adding another stage to the customer journey that they didn't have before, right? And like you're just getting somebody in there. And I imagine if they're receiving outbound from you, it probably makes them more likely to hit their inbound channels.
We see that. We actually see, we have this concept of outbound led inbound.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
most home service businesses do is they do inbound led outbound. So you have to go
yeah,
spend,
yeah. You have to show interest of some kind first, right?
yeah, you have to spend hundreds of dollars on a lead so that then you can follow up with them forever. Hey, I
Yeah,
spent $300 on this lead and now I get to email and text them till the end of time.
yeah,
Versus, why don't we start with the low cost touch
yeah.
and then they come back inbound without having to go through those expensive channels.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I'm curious for you guys. You know, obviously, and I don't know the business as well as you do running it. You know, you're hyper targeting down to neighborhood level, and you're using that as kind of a data advantage to drive that. What do you see over the next few years here? Like, what additional data are you guys going to be bringing into the platform? You know, to really more deeply personalize it or find that consumer. You know, when they're maybe in a more even fortuitous spot to hit them with an outbound message.
This is where you start to see like big data sets and AI and
Hmm.
things being able to help you with buyer intent and
Yeah,
looking at buyer behaviors across multiple data sets and say, does this person look like not just the type of person I want to sell to, but are there other buyer behaviors? Do they
yeah,
buy lots of stuff? Are we seeing them, buying related services that might be, a good indication of your type of service being relevant to them?
hmm,
Or
hmm.
the other thing that comes from that is adding just more and more external data, right? So we've gone from simple contact and property data to now,
Sure.
home listing information. This house is up for sale. When was the last time it was sold? Are
Yeah,
there indications it might be coming up for sale? They're buying certain things that indicate that type of thing.
yeah,
Weather data. If you're a roofer, you really care about that. There was a hailstorm
yeah.
last week here in Nashville.
Okay, yeah.
All the
So
roofer, so
timely and relevant. Yeah.
all my roofing customers are out there right now. Like, hey, we can get you an inspection, but
Yep.
how are you the first one to get in touch with those people? So,
Yeah.
speed to lead is important, but speed to that created lead is kind of the way we think about it. And
Yeah.
any data that helps you get that right person at that right time,
Yeah.
that's where we want to continue to lean in.
Have you seen consumer mindset shift around like the messaging they receive? Like I think consumers are getting smarter around and they are thinking more about, is this AI generated content or is this a human or a robot? Have you seen like the receptivity? Is that even the word I'm trying to say here? The
It is
reception,
now.
of your messages from your clients, has that changed over the few years since you've been doing this?
It has, and we've tested a lot of different things. So we learn with them along the way, and then we use that information to help. We use data to inform, like, hey, this is actually what works better.
Yeah,
What we've seen is a comparison to not just AI generated, like mass, kind of like non-personalized stuff, but
yeah,
and you could do some AI generation on personalization at scale, they call it. But
mhm,
really, actually, it's more about what are the best practices that help you cut through the noise and present as a legitimate business in the
yeah,
area. If
yeah,
this is about neighborhood outreach and you're a local business, which home service businesses always are, they're local,
yep,
that's the whole point,
yep,
then it's how do you cut through the noise of people who are just spamming? How do you
yep,
prevent appearing as spam because
yep,
you're not? Like you don't want to be spam, right? That doesn't
yep,
help your brand. So it's simple things, even like always identifying your business name when you reach out, being a real person. If you're using an AI tool, say it. Say, hey, I'm a virtual assistant
yeah,
responding.
yeah,
Saying these things to build trust, because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to earn the trust of the buyer
yep,
so that even if they don't need you right now, you get on their to-do list for something they
yep.
want down the road.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that's where, you brought it up before, but being omni-channel in nature is super important because I do think consumers are getting smarter, right? And I think they're potentially getting more weary of spam. And so having like these other channels that are operating effectively, like having your pages up to date, like putting content out there, doing local partnerships, getting boots on the ground, like all that stuff just makes that automated message hit better, I have to imagine.
It does. We say, like, people say 10, 12, 14 touches to get someone to take an action.
Yeah,
So you start saying, oh, well, they saw your van, they saw your outside, they talked to the neighbor, they got a couple of emails, they received a text message the day before the job, they received a text message after the hammers
yeah,
stopped the day after, they got something in the mail. Like all this stuff works together. And
yeah,
so how are you it's hard. It's real hard. Just building a business is hard. You're building
yeah,
one. All your listeners out there, they're building businesses. It's not easy. If it
yeah,
was, everyone would do it. So
right,
thinking about how are you going to go out there and make this thing scalable, and
yeah,
that's really important because the one difference I would say about some of these channels is, from a digital like reliance on inbound perspective, not to do that stuff, but
yeah,
it's a lot of money and
yeah,
it's not as targeted. So
yeah,
take that into account. Then what unfortunately usually happens is when people jump from there down to something else, they jump down to a purely 100% manual process. I'm going to
mhm,
go to the meeting. I'm going to
yeah,
walk into the business. I'm going to knock on the doors. I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm just
yeah.
saying if you want to go from $1 million to a $10 million year business, you're probably not going to be able to find 10 times more hours in the day.
Yeah, yeah. Something will break.
We got to create some leverage for the time that we're investing because that's how
Yeah,
you scale.
yeah, yeah. No, I think it makes a ton of sense. And I think, kind of bridging this conversation of scaling home service businesses, right? I think something that's becoming ever present, it has been for the last decade plus, is private equity's influence on the space. And I'm curious, your take on that. Like, you have a lot of clients here. I'm assuming you've had some that have gotten acquired by, maybe against it, like all of this stuff. I think you can't avoid it now. It's always a question. How do you see private equity impacting this space over the next 5 to 10 years? Obviously consolidation is happening. Do you think that continues at the pace it's continuing? Do you think it changes? What are your thoughts there?
Yes to all those things. I see private equity across the various different customers we work with, both in franchise world. There's private equity backed, franchise organizations. I see
Hmm.
private equity roll ups across pest and roofing, HVAC, some of those areas. What I find interesting is private equity kind of lives in two places. One, they will back a franchise system at
Yep.
various types of service, right? You could be almost any
Yep.
types of service, and if you can create an effective franchise system, then we can create a private equity partnership in that direction. On the independent side, private equity generally doesn't want to invest where they are competing for a race to the bottom on pricing. And so if
Sure.
you are a kind of a lower cost service, if you are offering window washing or you're offering, just straight lawn care, not landscaping, things like that,
Yeah.
it will be more difficult to get private equity to look at you or value you with a high multiple of your revenue,
Yep.
or even look at you at all, because they want to have some type of competitive moat, you know, roofing, it's harder to build, takes more money. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, these have like moats around them naturally because the difficulty of hiring and journeyman status and things like that. So looking at where you are is the first step in deciding, is private equity even going to be interested in my type of business? Yeah. And then that's for those people interested in exiting. I think we're in like the 6th inning for some of these industries.
Sure.
For mechanical and for pest, it's not just squish them together and they're worth more money anymore. They got to grow them.
Yeah.
But the fact that they have to grow them means that if you are in a market with a private equity backed player, they're not going to be happy just to keep absorbing and growing that way. They're going to have to come for your business.
Yep.
Because they have to grow the base to expand the revenue multiple that they bought in at, which means you're going to have competitors with pretty deep pockets who
100%.
Are looking at long-term values on things that you might need to be able to be thinking about your payroll this month.
Sure. Yeah.
So how you get efficient against private equity, to me, also speaks to how do you own a local area? How do you look at private equity if you're competing with one? And basically say we are the local business versus what is essentially no longer a locally owned and operated, might be locally operated, but locally owned business. If that's the battle you're going to play, then how do you play it on your terms?
Yeah. No, I think it makes
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with private equity either.
No.
You're building businesses. A lot of home service businesses build them as the asset for their exit, for their retirement. And so they have to create liquidity for themselves to be able to make their retirement happen. And private equity affords a really good way to monetize your life's work.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's like one of very few potential pathways for this, the silver tsunami of businesses that are going to be hitting the market here over the next 15 to 20 years. Like, they have to go somewhere or they're just going to go away, right? And so I totally agree with that.
Yeah, but there's also other options. I would say private equity is not the only game in town. You can look at debt financing to pass it on to your employees or to a loved one or a child or something like that. Like, you could do other mechanisms to try to create some extract some value. If you've built a multi-million-dollar business, I would really recommend you look at talking to somebody who plays in this market and look, and it can help you with some financial advising around what are the options. Don't just assume I have to sell to private equity. That's not the only game in town, but it very well might be the best opportunity for you. So
100%. Yeah, I think entrepreneurship through acquisition is a massive trend right now. There's a lot of people out there looking to buy a business and operate it themselves. Was talking to a lady who owns several Ace Hardwares, and she went into this direction for her retirement of getting it to become all employee owned. And so I think, to your point, a lot of cool pathways out there. But yeah, private equity is one of them. And with that, Jimmy, I think wrapping and closing on our time here, I'm curious, from your position, you've been a sales leader in SaaS, you've built this company, you and your wife own a franchise brand, what's your one takeaway for people? If they were to listen to 2 minutes of this, what do you want people to take away as they're working to, grow their business from what you've learned growing yours?
Just keep going.
Sure. Yeah.
I just keep going. I mean,
resilience wins over time.
My wife, when we first started this business and both businesses, there's a lot of stress in your life when you're investing lots of money and you're raising money from investors. And my wife has found me at my desk, I don't know if I can do this, moments of doubt. By the way, those are totally normal. Everybody has.
You should feel those. If you don't feel those, I don't think you're normal. You know what I mean?
It's a normal feeling if you're starting your own home service business right now and you're like, can I do this? I'm like, here's my guarantee. If you don't try, you definitely can't do this.
Yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
You might be right. Now, you might be wrong. But the people who just keep going, I had a partner that we work with here in Nashville, Contractor Hub, and they were celebrating on social media that they were 6 months into the launch of their product. They've been out this longer than that, right? Yeah. I saw that. I sent them a message today, and I just wanted to say, hey, congratulations. It's awesome to see other people here in town out there making things happen. And I sent them this reminder. It's the same thing I would say to everybody doing a business, but just keep going, is Phil Knight, I think, quoting his old coach, which was talking about the benefit of just keep going, which is, the cowards never started, the weak ones died along the way, and that leaves us, right? If you keep going and keep trying, then the chances of your success are infinitely higher.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it is wild. Just the amount of times you wake up in a day or something happens, and it's like you can immediately go down to heavy doubt, and then the next day something happens, and you're immediately back up again. Like, and then just having this notion, like what I found makes it easier. To your point, is just like you've made it through all the ones in the past. Like you're gonna make it through this one. It's just like you just gotta be around to get to the next game, like get to the next battle.
For sure, 100%.
I love it. And finishing on that, Jimmy, where can people find you? Where can they learn more about GlassHouse? Give people the directions to find you.
Absolutely easy enough. GlassHousePro.com. Easy. We can see videos of our products, set up a demo to talk to our sales team, pricing, all those things. We're real transparent about everything. Case studies, all that cool stuff. So yeah, check out our website. And then I'm pretty easy to find via my company because I jump on and talk to customers every single day.
Sure.
So.
Love it. Well, Jimmy, thank you for taking the time today. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. Pleasure.
Absolutely. And for everybody else, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Behind the Franchise as much as I did. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. We'll talk to you.